Right. So Tim, since you cannot hear us, I think it's Friday, Feb 16th, RX meeting. Did we just lose the sharing? Okay, cool. I think we can start with that. I think the story today was RX apps, right? I think we can go with the presentation when Tim is joining, I think. Do we know who was going to present the RX app stuff?
I think Naman is required, Bala. I'll ping him.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Are we talking about the XApp deployment?
I think that was the first item, right? The yes, deployment of RX apps, yes, using Nephia.
Okay,
Without SMO.
Right.
Yes, that's Rick XApps, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. No problem. I'll ping him. He told he will join. I think I'll ping him.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Yeah. Hi, Vimal, Kiran, what's the time guy is for you guys? Isn't it the party time, Friday evening?
It's 6, yeah, for me.
It's 6, yeah.
And I think Kira is it's 5, I think. Correct? Kira?
I'm actually I'm on the west coast of the US at the minute,
Okay.
so it's nice and early.
Early, 9.
But
okay.
Normally it's 5 o'clock for me.
Okay, cool. So you're traveling just like Wim this week then. Wim, you're traveling next week, right? You're coming here.
Yeah, I'm out next week. Yeah.
Okay. Do we know the agenda items? Hey, Tim, we can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Don't ask me why, but the agenda items are actually on what we have is really the only thing that I've seen in terms of the use case scoping is the deployment of the XApp without the SMO. I think you guys were talking about that.
Yeah,
but that was only announced on 2/14. I don't know if the group wants to look at that. And the other ones is, I don't know if Subhash is on, but there was this, we sent back this service assurance framework that's back into service assurance now. The only other use case that I'm aware of is this impact analysis. And I don't know if that's ready or not for discussion. Subhash, you're on. So could you let us know?
Yeah, Tim. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yep. So yesterday, actually, we discussed on the service assurance framework, audio bandwidth assurance. So yep. So I will try to again address the concerns that is raised from the VIM. So that we will discuss further. And the user stories around the impact analysis that is still not yet ready.
Okay.
So we'll be adding some more details, and we will inform once it's ready.
All right, and so this one needs announcement. So the only thing that we have today for the RX scoping meeting, correct me if I'm wrong. So, Karen, do you guys have anything from the information modeling? I didn't see any announcements, so I'm not sure.
So one more thing, Tim, when you were away, what are that tool that he's going to ping Naman? If he's online, they can present the first story, the user story XApp.
Okay, yes, I know, but I'm waiting for him to show up. Right?
Yeah. If at all he shows up, yes.
I'm doing my best to dance.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's look at. So Karen, did you have any thing getting close on IM?
No, we had a discussion about bringing through a user story on documentation of the modeling that we have today, but the sense within the group on in my meeting anyway was that that's kind of doesn't need to come up to the level of a user story, that it's more of an operational thing. So we're going to discuss that on Monday in the network architecture meeting.
Okay. All right, cool.
And then outside of that, then we're just got a lot of planning and debating about the right approach to take. So,
all right. So Wim, is there anything in TAO and SIG automation that maybe the network architecture team here kind of needs to know as they develop their use cases? Is there, we talked about the observation framework. Is there some other big things coming from, in terms of enablers coming from network architecture that we should be aware of?
So the ones that we are discussing, which is actually a bit of a mix between SIG 1 and SIG 2, but I think it morphed more into a SIG 2 meeting is, so there is the SDK side of the house, right? So there is the SDK work. So the idea there is to come up with, let's say, with capability to make it easier to write or to make these operators, right? So today we write a bunch of codes, right? And if you compare to, we compare to a Helm chart, which is basically what people do today. Although an operator versus a Helm chart is not the same, right? But if you look to what we do at the moment, it's basically what a Helm chart does, right? And I'd say there's a few more things, but not much at the moment. So if you compare to building a Helm chart versus building operator, I think it's too complex, and you have to write too much code, right? So there's some work going on to figure out, is there a better way to do that? So that's one thing, right? Then the other part is, I think, work that's ongoing. So there is an observability task force, which basically is looking at the it's looking at how can we get information from the network functions and report upon that. So they are focusing mainly on using Prometheus as that is where the metrics collect, but then there is various activities to see how we can get. So the issue that we have is we are constrained with what Free5GC offers, which is not a lot at the moment. I don't know whether they have looked to, or I missed the meeting, the last meeting on observability, but so they are, so there is a bunch of things that they are doing to help with the trying to figure out and how to get metrics out of the system, even surrounding even the network functions. So some people are even looking to using eBPF to get like statistics from the surroundings and derive information from there. And then the other thing is so there's some work on NF2 infra, which is focusing on the idea is to install by just installing one package, so all the rest comes automatic, right? So that's kind of the other part. So that's the activities, and then there is another thing that we haven't started yet. Is so we have seen some, let's call it, constraints with ports, right? We kicked off some discussions around what can we do to improve some of the things that we see in that area, because so that's another activity that we are looking at to see whether we can do some improvement. But that's just we didn't do a lot, so that's something that we are going to dig into.
So is there an expectation, or is there a request, I guess, that as we start developing these use cases, like what we're doing for ORAN, for example, right, or even the service assurance, that they will, for these things, particularly the three that you talked about, that we use these new enabling pieces? Or
it's impossible. I don't think you can for R3 in my view, right? So this is something that when you go to the next phases, hopefully we are having good progress in R3, which means that from R4 you can use them, right? So that's kind of Because if you make everything dependent on everything, then you don't do anything, right?
Yeah, that was that. I just wanted to make sure it went, because you may have something that you're just putting final touches on, right? And that you say, well, we need help with or whatever, and then that's fine.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I generally say I'm one release. I'm using it one release after you release it, right? So
Yeah, because right now, if you look to most of the user story we have reviewed so far, right, I think they are using the system as is, which is actually
as two,
okay, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah, and which is good, right? Because it just and we will learn from there as well, right? So there might be things that we are not doing well enough, which we have to improve, right? But of course, I mean, I like take the SDK as an example, right? So what you see is that there is like XUp. I just reviewed the document just before the call. So they have to write an operator. Okay, so most likely at the moment we have two flavors so far. One is in Go, the other one is in Python, right? So there is two flavors that we have used so far. The idea is to make it even more simple if we can, right? So of course, if that would have been available, it would have been nice to use that with these new applications, because every application has some, let's say, subtleties that are specific to it. And of course, if that would have been available, it would help us to get some feedback. But unfortunately, we are not there yet. So that's why you cannot be dependent on that at the moment. Of course, if, for example, I don't think it's realistic, but let's say in April we have something, then that's a different conversation. But if it's really towards the end of the target date for release 3, it will be more difficult to refactor it, right? So then it's better, because all of these, the other thing that you have to bear in mind is that all of these approaches can live next to each other, right? So you can do the Go code, you can do the Python code, you can do hopefully the more easy SDK that we come up with. So all of these things can live together. So that's the other nice thing about the framework, about the system we have, is that you don't have to move from one to the other. But of course, if the effort to implement is lower and easier to maintain, right, then of course that's a bonus, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I see Naaman's on. So there's also a couple things. Is that it looks like, at least from an ORAN perspective, I don't know, maybe Service Assurance will have something, but Santa, it may very well be that I know ORAN has got their face-to-face meeting next week. So maybe it might be a good time for us to have a discussion on architecture. You might want to schedule that for next Friday.
Yes, Tim. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I see Karen and Robbie have their hands raised. So was there comments on this one?
I just put the two links in the chat
right.
if you wanted to provide the SDK. There's a link to the epic, I think, that Stephen wrote.
Oh, okay.
You can put the link into and also the observability one. So
yeah,
I think I had another comment, but I forgot what it was.
Okay. I guess a couple of questions. Wim, so the SDK, the Helm operator, is it the continuation of work that was basically contributed from Samsung? You had a way which you could ingest those Helm charts and generate an operator, then you could have a business logic, like the NFD deployment. That's how I thought the whole the software worked. Are we talking about the same thing here?
No, so I mean the part that we are on right now for the SDK is to use, let's say, Flux as the way to instantiate Helm charts, because what we've seen is that the feedback that we have, that's mainly from the Ericsson team, is that there's a bunch of Helm charts which use hooks, and the only solution that supports that is Flux. So we are more on a path to basically build. So you will have let's say you have two sets of operators, if you will, one that uses Helm still, and others that don't use Helm at all. So these are the two things that we are looking at. The one with Helm, our goal right now is to use Flux as the Helm operator, because that has the most feature sets. And as such, so that's what we are targeting. So in other words, what we are planning to do is we render whatever is needed up to the values of the YAML files that the Helm chart needs, and then we hand it over to Flux to do the rest of the job. So that's kind of how you have to look at it.
Oh, okay. So there are two approaches, but I think you're leaning towards what you just said, using Flux, CD, and so
Yes.
on. Right. Okay. And the observability, just other question is, what trigger is the observability trigger still based on an intent, like from a CR that is applied in the management layer, and then say, okay, this network function, I'm interested in this kind of say FMPM metrics, and that's what then basically gets configured in Prometheus, and then you start getting some notifications. Is that the kind of the loop there, the control loop?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah. So you basically say, okay, this
Okay.
is the information that I want, and then you start the process, and then yeah, from there the information should become available. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So let's look at this. We've now got Naaman on. So Naaman, you want to take it over here, and we'll look at. First of all, I'm going to ask the question because again, it came up Wednesday. Do you guys want to see this, or do we want to wait till next Friday? The user story. If you haven't had time to look at it and you want to do next Friday, that's of course your option, or we can have a look at it now.
I'm okay with it. I just reviewed it just before the meeting, so I went through it. So for me, it's okay. I don't know for others.
All right, we can look at it now, and again, if it needs some more work, we'll push it back and see. So, all right. So, Naaman, do you want to take a? I'm going to stop sharing, and you take it, man.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Tim.
You got about 20. Well, you get the rest of the time.
Okay. I won't take much actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we have already seen like deployment of near arteric along the same lines. So we have deployment of XApp using operator and nephew, of course. So here I have captured like the architecture, like again, 2 steps. So deploy the operator first using the KPT package, and then we can create the NF deployment okay, sorry, it's CR, not CRD. CR and config CR for the XApp. So basically XApp requires, okay, I've captured a custom CR for a sample XApp. Let's say there's Hello World Go in ORAN SC. So we can, so we need to configure initial like RMR related things, as well as like some configurations like which messages needs to be like sent or subscribed to. So all these initial data can be sent configured in from config CR. We can once we create the NF deployment CR and config CR, like the XApp operator, XApp Kubernetes operator, which is already there in ORAN SC, will take the configuration and then deploy the XApp. So that's how the plan is. And also, I think this is similar flow as as I already mentioned in the RIC deployment user story. So we'll create the KPT package, then package variant set also needs to be created. Then the package will be delivered to the Gitea, and through config sync, the package will be synced, and then the operator will be deployed. So once the operator is already there, so we can again going through the same process. It's just that when we create the CR, again, I think here I mentioned CRD, but yeah, I'll change that. So once we create, okay, no, CR for the CRD is created. So yeah, here it's correct. So yeah, once we create the CR, the operator will be listening on it, and then it will deploy the XApp. And yeah, so XApp will be deployed in the same cluster as RIC. And I think in the last meeting, we had this discussion like where we'll be deploying. So can we have that architecture so that it will be clear? So this is the user story for RIC. So here I've added the same thing. And since XApp will be running in the same cluster as RIC, so the same thing applies there also. The RIC will reside on the regional cloud or regional cluster, and like all CU, CP or E2 basically CUCP and UP. Sorry, not CP, UP. CUP and DU will reside in the edge cluster. So yeah, that's about it. And yeah, for like software development part, the operator needs to, so KPT package needs to be created. Since operator is already there, there will be some changes obviously required. And also we need to create the CR for NF deployment. Okay, I'll change here also. Okay, yeah. And the config CR for XApp. So I think we are just creating the CR and config CR, and the operator changes if at all it is required. Otherwise, we can use it from the ORNSC itself. No changes is required on the like Nephew side. We are just using the functionality of Nephew to deploy the XApp. Config CR will definitely use will use the configuration that is required for deploying the XApp, which as of now you have something called XApp descriptor or Helm kind of thing, which is used to deploy the configuration used to deploy in the RIC as of now in ORNSC. So we can use config CR for deploying the XApp configuration. Yeah, I think that's about it. If there are any questions, Wim, I actually didn't see your comments till now. Yeah, I think I'll
Yeah, I
see.
just reviewed. I didn't have the time so far, but I was able to review a bit. But you don't require. So I have a few questions still open, if I may.
Yeah.
You don't need
I'm-
any new thing in specialization, I think, right? So it's purely so you just use the config ref injection as we do, right?
Yeah,
correct?
no visualization is required for this user story. For near arteric, for E2 node, the E2 interface configuration we require, but here I think it's all internal to RIC platform. Since XApp is deployed on the RIC platform, so they actually communicate through RMR, which is the internal messaging buffer. So no specialization or is required to add the network information. So yeah.
And how do they discover the surroundings? Is it purely using the services within the cluster?
Yeah,
Is there
so-
anything that needs to talk externally to it?
So that's what. So we are actually providing how we can communicate through RMR route. So RMR route is created and which port it will be listening to. So all these is given as part of the configuration when we bring up the XApp.
Yes. So and this is deployed in which network? Is it a default CNI?
Yeah, it's part of the RIC platform, so it will be the default. Like whatever the RIC platform is using, so it will use the same.
But for me, what is interest, is there any dependency like we need to take care about? For example, we had to, for example, inject the UPFs. We ended up injecting the whole UPF config, which was maybe a little bit too much, but to be able in FreeFiGC, the SMF needed to use it to communicate to it, right? So like the discovery between all the different elements, is there a requirement for that, or it's all we have all the mechanism in place to do so?
So you mean like XApp connecting to all the services of RIC platform?
Yes, or maybe to the external world, or to make sure that we have all the primitives and the capabilities to be able to provide that that information
So XApp,
if there's something to be done.
No, so actually similar to near arteric, so XApp actually talks to one of the services which is E2 term of the platform. So then E2 term connects to all the E2 nodes, and so that's how it is communicated. So if we have configured the RIC like here, we need to provide the E2 interface configuration. So if once the RIC is up, so XApp will directly talk to one of the services which is E2 term, which actually talks to the E2 node. So like I don't see any use case or like anything, any interface that is that XApp exposes as of now. So on the Node side also, there is A1, and then A1 actually communicates all the policies which the XApp has subscribed to. So there is no interface or no place where XApp connects to external world directly. For the northbound, it connects to A1 mediator for A1 policies, and for southbound, it connects to E2 term of the platform. To connect to E2 nodes. So yeah.
So let me ask another question. So what do you mean is a success? That the pod runs or that we can communicate to it? So are we going to do something that makes
yeah. So that I've already mentioned here. So there are two things. So intercommunication between the services with the XApp. So that is done over RMR message buffer. So if it is able to connect to like if it is able to send RMR message or receive RMR message, that specifies that it is able to reach from A1 as well as E2. So it will be it will be able to communicate to external world also, since we are able to connect to A1 mediator service as well as E2. And the second thing is update data on DB. So basically, where if some E2 node is coming up, so then it registers it in the DB, and then XApp can actually get the list of eNode Bs that is present in the network or that is connected to that rig. So that API, if that API works, then we know that it is also connected to the database also. Redis DB in the rig platform itself. So yeah, these two things I've mentioned, that how we can see like if XApp is successfully deployed. And obviously, like first we can see that pod is running, and then these two things we can consider. If these two things are working, I think XApp, like basic features of the XApp, Hello World XApp actually. It actually is a blueprint for any XApp, like the basic feature, like it can communicate over RMR and also register or send subscription. So all that is done in the this basic Hello World XApp. So that all we are testing here. Yeah.
And so okay, can we do something more, let's say, sexy, or can we basically do something? Is it just, can we run like an app that uses the system, or is it purely we look at connectivity and that's it?
Yeah. So name it.
Like for a real demo.
Yeah.
For a real demo or
So
something
name
like
it. The question would be that, you know, in OSC, do you have, other than just Hello World XApps, do we have a catalog of XApps that we can bring to bear?
Yeah, so there are ton of XApp. Traffic steering is there. KPI mon is there. So KPI monitoring XApp. We can use that, but yeah, again, they will, I'm not sure, like I haven't seen the code of the other XApps. Yeah, so in one of the basic feature is subscription, sending the subscription from E2 node, and it's reaching the XApp. So I can think about some use case, like some proper demo that we can show.
Yeah, but you're going to need the OAI support for that, right? So the E2 on the OAI. So, you know, let's take an action item, right? So minimally, what we said is that we can show the hello world, right? And then let's take an action item to see if we can take one of the XApps from the catalog that OSC has and make that work with, or ensure that works with OEI.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I think that's what you're asking for, right, Wim?
Yeah, see, it would be good. I mean, okay, so we are doing testing, of course, but at the end of it would be good to show something like a cool demo, if you will, right? So it would be good if this works. It's always nice to, yeah, maybe
no, it's fine. So long as OAI, what we're going to need is it needs to be OEI with the XApp that's from OSC. That's all they have. They just have to look to see what's available.
So the thing is, I had a couple of similar questions that Tim and Wim, you guys are asking. So from a specialization perspective, Naman, if we get any particular XApp that does something more, substantial, then probably do you think we'll need the specialization requirements for that particular XApp? That's one question. The other thing is, for all these things to run, the rig has to be running, isn't it? First, is that the assumption?
Yeah, the RIC's already down there. Yeah.
So there's another user story. I think Tim, you're saying something.
No, go ahead. You got it. Sorry.
So there is another user story where we are deploying rig using the nephew, and their specialization is actually involved to configure the E2 interface. And once the rig is up and running, so I actually had this thing like this user story was deployment of rig and XApp. But like Wim also suggested, and also I also feel that for XApp, since XApp can be of variety and there can be different use cases. So for XApp, there should be another user story. So because it actually requires something like this kind of configuration, which is like different from RIC.
Okay,
So
I totally agree with
that. First we deploy RIC, and then once the RIC is deployed, we'll deploy the XApp also. So I think these both the user stories are interlinked, since first we deploy the RIC and then XApp. So yeah.
So that's obviously the first priority is RIC. Obviously, that's a dependency. We do that, and then we do this. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
I would say if we were doing it, we would do it as the RIC, then we would do the Hello World XApp, and then we'd find the interesting.
Yes, I agree with that. That's a good thing, because the more interesting stuff, I think it may have dependencies with other network functions. That's the reason, right?
Exactly. So you need a handshake with some DU, right? I mean, unless you're assuming it to be OAI, then that becomes another dependency to validate, and unless it's already supported in OAI. If you have done this,
but I'm saying that that's the action item that David took, right? They got a catalog in OSC of XApps. We just got to look to see what is supported in OAI to find an XApp to show that with, right? So
yes, and I know there's also DU stack development in OAI. I mean, that would be natural candidates to validate with, but if you want to complete the story, you need everything.
That's right. Let Naaman and Sagar try to figure out what they can do.
One more, so I'm just thinking out loud. So the thing is, what we can do with this XApp thing is, since it's independent of specialization, like we can think of like reconfiguring it, or like spawning another XApp if the load is more.
No, get a real world. Again, let's get a real world problem. I think what Wim is saying, and I tend to agree, is let's get something that when we show it to the community goes, oh, cool, right? Because they understand the domain, right? So you got XApps that have to do certain things, right?
I get it. The awe factor you're looking for, something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Network slicing.
Well, he's got traffic
slicing.
I don't know if the OAI's got control for it, but yeah.
So is that just another comment? Can you go up, Namit, that where you have non-real-time RIC too? So is that, I'm not sure. I don't think that's in scope, right?
Non-real-time RIC.
You have it. You have it. No, in this.
Okay, the other user story. I get it. Yeah. This thing. Yeah.
That's not in the scope, I assume. The
Yeah,
other, so
that's
yeah,
not
so
in
if
scope.
then if you really want to drive like traffic steering, KPI monitoring kind of use cases, don't you require that to trigger A1, or you will have to emulate something to trigger an A1 for those XApps to do something in the southbound?
Yeah, we're not hooking up in this particular one. We're not hooking up A1.
No. Yes, I understand that. I'm just saying that if you want to do the actual handshake, that will be mostly triggered by policies or intents that is coming over A1. That's how these XApps are triggered, or they do something.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that if you want to do an end-to-end, otherwise you'll have to modify the code in some sense.
But my point is, Robbie, that's part of the walk, right? So
Yes, yes. No, I'm just saying that Travis is trying to
we'll hook up
see that.
A1,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be in the first deployment. Is what
So yeah, as of now, we can look at deploying RIC and XApp, and maybe like going forward, we can deploy non-RT also in the similar way, and then we can have end-to-end call with OAI, DU, and so that will be like the complete integration of ORAN SC with Nephew, like deployment, everything. But yeah, I think for now we can let's just focus on RIC and XApp, like and once these two are running, then we can actually go for non-RT RIC as well, and then we can showcase the end-to-end maybe.
Yeah. The other one more comment I had is that going to Wim's question on the networking aspects, because XApps is basically using your other kind of other components within the RIC platform for communication. So would it be useful to show your networking, basically show XApps interaction with RIC and actual interfaces that is basically requiring your secondary CNIs and one that might just use default your primary CNIs and so on. Having that picture there, how XApps is interacting from a networking perspective. There's too much of information. I'm not sure, but it seems to be relevant to what Wim was trying to understand.
Okay, so I'm not really sure about this thing, but yeah,
Well,
maybe
but what he's saying is that the XApp has to
Yeah.
communicate with the near real-time RIC, and just show a picture of a diagram of what
Oh,
the
got it,
communication paths
Yeah,
are
got it,
between them.
got it.
Just as you
Got
got them documented here in your little.
Yeah, sure. I got it. So yeah, I'll try to get a picture showing how it communicates with all the other services of near RTRIC, and then yeah.
Yeah, just identifying the external and internal interfaces. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah. I thought that will be a lot for this, like just for deploying the XApp. So I didn't add that. So yeah, I'll add that also if that's required. Yeah.
Well, it'll get to the point where they have to understand, do they have to have segmented, because I'm assuming it's all probably on the same subnet, right? But there's an interface that they're all on the same subnet, all the interfaces. But they should have the interfaces listed out because you're going to want to create resources for all those, right? So
yeah, most of them will be intra-cluster, I think, between pods, and except one pod will have one A1, the other pod will have an E2. I think that's how it will be mostly, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions on this, guys? All right. So the question to the group will be, do we consider this okay to put in the bag for use cases, knowing that Naaman still has to go back and resolve the outstanding comments on the use case?
So Tim, I'm sorry if I missed the previous meeting and stuff. So basically the RIC story, which is this one, depends on, is it already in the bag or that needs to be?
Yeah, it's in the bag.
It's in the bag. Okay, cool.
I feel like we're carrying around a bag.
I think
your bag is getting very heavy, Tim.
Until you start pulling things out of the bag and putting them onto releases, the bag just gets bigger.
We just transferring it to SIG2, the load has been transferred now. Guys have to
So
carry.
wait. We haven't given our
blessings.
KPIs and SLAs yet.
He'll also be there.
It's not.
He'll also be there. Yes,
No, it's no problem. We can do this for R7.
That's when it comes in. That's when it comes in. All right. Okay. So I'm going to note.
In my view, this can go. I mean, the details we have to flush out is business as usual, I would say, right? So this one, that's my 2 cents. The question is whether we can do it all and stuff like that. But there is nothing. I mean, if you look at this is using the system like we have, right? It's basically experimenting with other environments. I think the CRD probably needs a bit of discussion, but in general, there is nothing here that is that we would not be able to do, right? If we have the right people and the right folks getting this done. At least that's my 2 cents.
Does anyone object to that?
No, I think I agree with Wim. It's mostly using the same things, especially this particular story here, which is hello world kind of a accept, and especially all the specialization and all other things, these requirements coming from the other story, the Rick story. I think obviously when we do this, if this will be a straightforward thing is what I'm thinking based on whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the Rick story may have slightly intricacies in terms of specialization.
Okay.
Yeah, but
All
also
right.
not major, Bala, right? Because the only thing they have to do, okay, they need another IP for another interface, and that's it, right? So
That's it.
it's
That's it.
also using the same mechanics as we have right now. So it's just they have another usage of it, which is good, right? But so
which is good, yeah.
in other words, we don't have to develop anything new in specialization, as far as I understand, for the rig itself. We just need some specialization for this one. We don't even there is. The only thing that we're doing in specialization is basically put the config ref into the NF deployments. So, but it's nothing, right? So,
yeah.
So these things, so they are using the machinery that we already have.
Yeah. Yes, I understand. And then, like Naman mentioned, if there are some changes in the operator that is needed on the OSC that's already there, Naman, that also you don't think that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, that's not a big. In fact, like I am the one who worked on the operator, so so it's not a problem. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that operator, it's already using NF deployment, or
no. So
or not?
it's
Okay, that has to be done still. Okay,
yeah,
I was
that
just
has to
trying
be
to.
done.
Okay.
Okay,
If
so
you would have the SDK, it would have been good to exercise it with this thing, right? But okay, yeah, that's too early.
all right, so that's everything for today. Is there anything else that people want to discuss? We've got about 15 minutes. Okay, if not, I'm going to hand this back. Santa, I've already created next week's agenda with the stuff that was left over from today. If you could add in what you want for your agenda for next Friday, maybe something in the architecture that we talked about, that would be great. Oh, Subhash, you got your hand raised? Sorry.
Yeah, if time left, I think could we discuss on service assurance also if folks are interested?
Does anyone have an objection to doing that?
Yeah,
Okay.
some action is required. Yes.
Yes, you have an objection to looking at this right now, or you want to look at it, Verada? Sorry, I didn't understand that.
No. Yeah, if time is there, yeah, maybe we can. Look
Okay.
at it.
Yeah, we've got about 10, 15 minutes. So go ahead. Take it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Actually, so yesterday actually we discussed, and we also raised a few of the concerns. So that we did not get enough time to discuss further also. So we took an entire hour. So that was a really fruitful discussion, and we are able to understand what Wim is exactly trying to raise it, because what I feel, or we feel that it's like we are trying to take two different viewpoints for service assurance. So I feel that we should discuss together and try to collaborate and come to the sub conclusion. Like Wim has a different opinion, we have the different opinion. So we should try to bring it together, so that means like we could make a progress. So I try to actually point out, note down those comments from the Wim, those concerns, and try to actually return one small write-up also. So if you would like to take a view on it, maybe I'll share it offline, or if we can discuss now also, I could share it, and maybe as a team, let's try to take some constructive decision. That I would request. Wim, any what do you say, or anyone else?
So you're asking to share, right?
Yeah, miss, I could share. Miss, like I have some small
Yeah.
write-up.
We're saying that you got a captive audience for the next 12 minutes. So go ahead and share.
Okay. So okay, let me try to share it. Just a second, I'll be sharing. So is it visible?
Yes, you're visible.
So yeah, Wim, actually, I noted a few of your comments. So I'll just explain it like the user so the Wim used like our user story that talks more about the details on the actor deployment instead of talking more on the bandwidth assurance. So actually, so yeah, this is our point of view there. I tried to capture it. So our point of view, like since past few months, actually, we were trying to address this following. We were discussing on this following 3 points. It's like how we could capture the end user intent around the assurance, and how we could translate that assurance into different aspects, like how to configure the observability, to take a note of those KPI parameter, and also like the third one, like how we could place actor in the correct place. So actor could be like a X app, R app, or even for the code it could be different. So this aspect actually we are trying to discuss, and we are trying to talk about the agentic framework, which could help us to address these three aspects. Okay. So as a first step, actually, what we is like, where was the concern? Like we are talking more about the how we could deploy it. So we just use the existing construct package variant in order to deploy the actor in the correct place. Actually, I would say maybe tomorrow the use case requirement will come that means we need to have in some different cluster where NF doesn't reside. So those kind of things means like we need to initialize the context of the actor. So that's why we did we worked with the package variant just to deploy it, but we are completely open. If you have any suggestion that we should not deal with the package deployment, and if there is something else, we can use it, we can discuss on it. But yeah, we as an immediate solution, we found that let's have the service assurance controller. And the second step,
But
which
let,
actually,
let me ask you a question. Sorry,
Yeah.
I had my hand raised.
yeah, sure.
So on that first one, why wouldn't you just be, you have a separate, as Wim was saying in yesterday's meeting,
Mhm.
we want things to do their one thing and one thing well, right?
Yeah,
And so in
right.
this case, it looked like the service controller, service assurance should be just focused on service assurance. Shouldn't be focused on deploying NFs. Shouldn't be focused on other aspects that I think that we're talking about.
Yes,
So in this, well, hang
Mhm.
on, let me finish.
Mhm.
So the question says, okay, if that's the case, and I have for whatever reason, a service assurance controller, maybe there's something there I don't know yet. We're trying to figure out what the value of that thing has, right? Says basically you're saying I need to wait for some deployment of some actor, right? So I have to worry about the status of it, right? Is that thing deployed before I want to continue to go do some stuff, whatever that stuff is, maybe provision the observability framework with some information. So that's what he's saying. So you shouldn't be doing the deployment. If anything, you should be waiting and reconciling your stuff to the system doing the deployment.
Right.
I believe that's what. When did I get
Yes,
that
yes.
correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, so
Because
I mean,
Mhm.
see, the thing is what I would like, what my overall comment is the following: they are trying to do lots of stuff, okay? But like for example, yesterday they showed a demo. The demo is about installing packages on a cluster. That is not something that is in scope of service assurance, right? We have other means to do that. So in other words, I try to make them focus on the things that matter on service assurance. But the problem is, the guys have, they think they have a big framework they want to develop. And I believe that this is not the right track that they are on. And for the reasons that, for example, they built a service assurance CRD that basically points to packages that needs to be installed. That is wrong, fundamentally wrong, because that means that we are going to end up with specific implementation for specific capabilities. So package installation is package installation, and if you want it, you use the service, but you shouldn't develop something specifically for service assurance, because that problem is not unique to service assurance. And secondly, it's not relevant in service assurance. So the issue is that rather than focusing on the service assurance use case, they're trying to build a lot of systems around it to make things work, but that will be very specific and not reusable anywhere. And I mean, and the second comment that I have is the use case is about PRB and bandwidth adjustment, right? If you look to the document, I went through it yesterday again. 90% of the document is not focused on that at all. It focuses on all the surroundings rather than focusing on what the use case is about. They are not focusing on that aspect, and that is the big discussion.
Yeah, Wim, I would say we were trying to build a generic framework which addresses multiple use cases. So that is why
yes, but the framework itself, Subhash, as I said yesterday, you're trying to address things in your framework that has nothing to do with service assurance, and that is applicable to other domains as well. So stay away from it.
Okay. I agree, but I'm just giving my point of view, because we are enabling
you agree, but you don't agree, because you always say I agree, but then you continue on the right track, and that frustrates people.
I am trying to give my view of, around solving this problem.
Don't say that you agree, because you don't agree.
Okay. So yeah, this is actually my view. Like as a first step, definitely we need some context, right? So that we can provide to the actor and do the deployment of the actor. And the second step, the actor will start doing the service assurance. So it will become a generic, like based on the different use case, the actor will be different. So I've broken down in 2 steps to address all the use cases. So that was my view, actually. Yeah. The second place, what exactly
what do you say?
Wait. See, first itself, right? Let's let people try. It's going to, it's a divergent view. People will take time to digest. But let's ponder actually. Maybe Wim was asking something. Yeah. Again, you repeat.
Well, I'm trying to understand what you're trying to say, because the problem is always you say something and then you do something different, which is the other problem that we have. So what are you suggesting? It's not clear for me.
Okay, the first step is the actor placement, right? So that we were saying that that could be done by some other framework which take a decision on the package placement. Okay, actor placement. And second, the exact place where the actor is doing its role for assurance, what we are configured. So particularly in the ODU case, it will try to fetch the KPI parameters and try to configure the bandwidth. So yeah, here I wrote it also. So this is the actual step for it.
He believes, Subhash, he believes first is not a part of service assurance.
Which one?
The first part which you are doing, right? Deployment, all the stuffs. So he believes why you are, why service assurance is doing deployment and all, because deployment has its own, dynamics, right? They have some infra requirements and all the stuffs. So he believes why service assurance.
Well, your voice is breaking. Yeah.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah, it is okay now. Hello. Yeah, Varda. we are not able to hear you. Am I audible?
Yeah, we
Assurance
hear you,
is-
but I
Yes,
think
yes, yes,
Narendra-
Subhash, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, Vardha is Vardha, we were not able to hear you. Okay, I think Vardha is not there.
What I propose that we do is
Mhm.
I want to help you and you make progress, right? So write it down in the user story, update the user story with what you believe, and we'll review it and then we can discuss it, right? Because we are running out of time.
Okay, yeah,
Here,
sure,
anyhow, so I
sure.
think it's better to write it down than to
Mhm.
just put one bullet, because at the end of the day, let's use the document as the baseline to discuss, right?
Okay, sure. So yeah. Actually, yeah, Miss, we don't have the time also. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to share these things. We can discuss offline also. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Tim, please you can go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so guys, it's 1 minute till. So we'll see you next Friday, and I won't be here. So Santa, you're gonna have to hold this. Okay. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Awesome. Next Friday is also holiday for Red Hat for some reason. Okay, cool. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.